So, the now famous picture of the Prince with his arm around Virginia Roberts in 2001, who claimed in US court documents that Prince Andrew had sex with her at the age of 17, something always emphatically denied by the palace, and the allegation was rejected by the US courts. The relationship of the sex offender and the Prince has drawn worldwide attention. After the release of these new pictures, Buckingham Palace said His Royal Highness deplores the exploitation of any human being, and the suggestion he would condone, participate in, or encourage any such behaviour is abhorrent. One thing is incontrovertible. Prince Andrew continued his acquaintance with a known sex offender long after it became public, something that's still been left unexplained by both the palace and Prince Andrew. Despite Epstein's death, the investigation and its ramifications are far from over, and this will worry the royal family. Well, joining us now from Norwich is former BBC royal correspondent Michael Coe. Good evening, Michael Coe. First of all,
good evening.
What do you make of the speed of the palace's response?
Outraged denial will not work. Answers are needed. The truth is required. You've put some of the cogent questions that need to be addressed. This is a very serious matter. It's going to become more serious. It's going to become worse for the Prince and worse for Buckingham Palace, because there are likely to be at least one and maybe more civil cases in America. That puts the Prince into the American legal system. This is not something that can be given to Scotland Yard to be buried. It is not something that will come up before Her Majesty's justices in the Royal Courts of Justice to be argued about by Queen's Counsel. This is going to go through the American court system. And in America, as you well know, Kirsty, they say with some justice that however high you may be, the law is above you. And this is already happening. Lawyers in America are asking the Prince to give depositions. That is the beginning of the process. It would be far better for him to address these matters right now.
Yes, so basically US lawyers who are operating on behalf of the alleged victims they're asking him simply to help them to find out more about what Epstein was up to, what kind of person he was. But there's no question of any kind of extradition or anything like that. It would be unthinkable to have something like that. What you're suggesting is it would do Prince Andrew good to go voluntarily if requested.
Yes, that is indeed what the American lawyers are saying and is being reported this evening. The fact of the matter is that he is a prime witness in these matters. Perhaps nobody is better situated to comment on these matters. He was the man inside the house. He was the man in the Mews House in London. He was in the pictures. He was there at the material times.
Well, I want to come on and talk to
what the lawyers in America are saying...
Sorry, I want to come on and talk to you about a Daily Mail story tomorrow morning. Before I do that, just very quickly from your vast experience, what about these stories that surfaced the last few days, you know, a very immaculately timed stories, or a flurry about a getting together again of Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew? It seemed too good to be true timing-wise.
Well, that's their personal affairs. I think, to be honest, that's froth and is immaterial. I think, though, if he's wise, he should take advice of his daughters. After all, you must remember, at the time these alleged offences took place, the Prince's own daughters were about the same age as some of these alleged victims of Jeffrey Epstein, now deceased. And I think anybody, any decent person, albeit a prince of the royal blood, would hesitate to still maintain a relationship with, a close relationship with somebody who'd already been convicted of fairly vile crimes.
In the Daily Mail tomorrow morning, it says Epstein's flight record raises yet more questions for Andrew. This is further linkage between the two men. Does that, in your view, put further pressure on Prince Andrew?
Well, this is what's going to happen, Kirsty. There's going to be a drip feed. Bit by bit, the information is going to come out. And you know, and your listeners know, and your viewers know, that it's not the offence that gets them in the end, it's the cover-up. And to avoid the cover-up, candour, openness, truthfulness, right now, that might actually save the situation. And if I were giving Prince Andrew, for whom I have some regard, I might say, and I liked him in his younger days, and he served this country well in the Falklands War, and he put himself into real danger, flying a helicopter as a decoy for Exocet missiles, so let's give him credit. If I were advising him now, which I'm not, I would say to him, take some advice from your lawyers, but see as if you can, do your best to answer and address these questions, because nothing else will lay this matter to rest.
Michael Cole, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Project Veritas released some footage yesterday of ABC News reporter Amy Robach lamenting on a hot mic that ABC News killed a story she had developed of alleged Jeffrey Epstein victim Virginia Roberts on tape years ago, leveling accusations not only against the now-dead financier, but implicating a member of the British royal family, Prince Andrew. She also had detailed reporting on connections between Epstein and former President Bill Clinton. Let's take a listen to the whole thing.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, it was what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
Robach's horrifying story. It contains all the same ingredients of NBC News' alleged cover-up of Harvey Weinstein, detailed by the enterprising journalist Ronan Farrow. The British royal family began exerting immense pressure on ABC News, who was desperate at the time to score an interview with Will and Kate. In other words, ABC News bosses killed a story about a sexual predator to preserve their relationship with the powerful. A side note, back in August, NPR also reported on ABC News quashing that story. But the ABC thing is the type of behind-the-scenes revelations that we all know happens daily. It is rarely captured so vividly on the screen. ABC is of course denying the story in some language you may find very familiar. First, they released a hostage statement from Robach, who was allegedly caught in a moment of private frustration, and that she could not obtain sufficient corroborating evidence to meet editorial standards. She also says nobody at ABC ever told her to stop investigating Epstein. ABC released their own statement side by side, saying Robach's reporting did not meet their standards to air and that they never stopped investigating the story. This is, of course, complete BS. Robach lays it out in the video. Her bosses told her, quote, nobody knows who this guy is in relation to Epstein. You don't think that's basically in order to stand down? ABC's explanation is literally exactly the same as NBC's pathetic excuse for not airing its Harvey Weinstein reporting, that the reporting did not meet the standards for air. And let me tell you what is newsworthy alone. It's this photo. That is a photo of a member of the British royal family with his arms wrapped around a 17-year-old girl at the residence of a known sexual predator. Do you have any more questions? Every single one of us knows why ABC News did not run this story and why NBC News killed this story into Harvey Weinstein. They wanted to preserve their relationship with the powerful. If they ran it, how else would things like this happen? Former Bill Clinton staffer and ABC star George Stephanopoulos once had dinner with Prince Andrew at Jeffrey Epstein's New York mansion in 2010 to discuss, well, of course, the upcoming wedding of Kate Middleton and Prince William. This is 2 years after Epstein was given his sweetheart deal by Florida prosecutors, but he was still required to register as a sex offender. What is the chief anchor for ABC News, the host of CBS Evening News Katie Couric, CBS's Charlie Rose, Woody Allen, and Chelsea Handler all doing there too? I think we all know the answer to that. They were cozying up to power, solidifying the base that Epstein had used and would continue to use for years in order to cover up his horrific crimes. This story is important for many reasons. Not only does it demonstrate beyond a shadow of a doubt that our corporate media giants not only defend the powerful when it comes to the things that may hurt their collective bottom lines, but they will stop at nothing even to cover up a whole host of crimes. The important thing to remember is what the media outlets like ABC News and NBC News choose to cover when they're quashing stories into Jeffrey Epstein or Harvey Weinstein. Story selection is the most pernicious form of media bias. What they choose not to show you is more important than what they do choose to show you. And that's the thing, Crystal, is, I mean, nobody knows who this guy is. Why does this even matter? Or this isn't an important story. This is a stupid story.
Literally the exact same things they told Ronan Farrow.
Same thing. It's like they were reading from the same script. And that's, like I said, we all know this happens every day. How many other people has this happened to? How many other stories are sitting in a vault, in an ABC News or an NBC News vault, of crimes, of powerful people that they wanted to preserve their relationship with? That's why this is so important. And look how deep the cronyism and the rot goes.
Yeah.
George Stephanopoulos, Katie Couric, they're all having dinner at this guy's house 2 years after he's a required a registered sex offender.
Yep.
They don't care.
I mean, and don't forget that detail from Ronan Farrow's story, alleged detail, let's say, where at the time that Ronan was doing this reporting on Harvey Weinstein, he was also trying to get a sit-down with Hillary Clinton about foreign policy.
Absolutely.
Email from Nick Merrill basically threatening if you don't lay off this Harvey Weinstein story, Weinstein being a big donor to Clinton, you're not going to get your story. And same dynamic here. Yeah. We're worried the palace is freaking out. We're worried about access to Will and Kate for a sit-down interview. And this is what happens, number one, when you have so-called journalistic outlets that are really about the capitalistic bottom line, and the bottom line is the bottom line, and you have access journalism where they're more concerned about preserving their friendship and their relationships with the powerful than they are holding them to account. And this is what Matt Taibbi says. He says the media is basically turned into courtiers rather than oppositional figures who are supposed to be holding these people accountable.
He's right.
And that's the reality.
He's absolutely right, which is they are more the allies of the people they're supposed to cover than they are on the opposition. And it's just so enraging because I go and I look at what are some of the stories that ABC and NBC did choose to put out there, right? In the meantime, while all this was happening, and yet they have these things that are sitting in their vault, explosive allegations, and it's because that these people were Democratic donors and had cozied up to the liberal, establishment. That's why they get protected. Yeah. That's why ABC News, the chief anchor is a former campaign staffer for Bill Clinton, a White House staffer. It's like we just forget that. We're like, oh, well, he's a newsman through and through. It's like, no. Like, do we forget the origin story of George Stephanopoulos? So many of these things are just, it's
well, and the establishment of both sides are really on the same team.
Yeah, they are.
Is the bottom line as well. And so as long as you're preserving access to these halls and lanes of power, and being able to get your little tidbits and get your big sit-downs and, go to your cocktail parties, then it's all good. And we should say, look, this is what I said when we were talking about the Ronan Farrow allegations as well. Yes, this is about NBC News, but it's about so much more than that.
It's way bigger than
because it's so much more difficult, so much more